And I was starting to get a little bit worried about the fact that the steroids just weren't working anymore. You know, every time I used it, either they just didn't really bring down the flare, or it would bring down the flare, but a few days later, like clockwork, it would come back, and it would come back way worse than it was before. So I was starting to look into, you know, what is it, you know, what is the root cause of my eczema, and what can I do to actually like manage this naturally, because I don't want to use steroids the rest of my life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on Back to Basics. Jolene here again, and today we'll be talking about how to deal with eczema using natural remedies. And I've got Uli, who is from Sweden, and she has had eczema since she was a child. So Uli, can you share with us more about yourself, who you are, and what has eczema, you know, what have you been through with eczema?
Absolutely. So my name is Ulrika, or Uli for short, and I'm from Sweden, but I grew up in the UK in London. And I was actually born with eczema, pretty much. I had it when I was a baby. You know, my parents were really frustrated about how to manage it. And then they used a lot of different steroids, the different creams. We went to all the different doctors, and it went away for a bit. Then it came back, and then I had it for pretty much sort of 10 to 15 years. So really, really long time. And that whole time, I always just used steroids because that is the only thing that doctors really give you. And then I got to 2017, and I was starting to get a little bit worried about the fact that the steroids just weren't working anymore. You know, every time I used it, either they just didn't really bring down the flare, or it would bring down the flare, but a few days later, like clockwork, it would come back, and it would come back way worse than it was before. So I was starting to look into, you know, what is it, you know, what is the root cause of my eczema, and what can I do to actually like manage this naturally, because I don't want to use steroids the rest of my life. Like, I know what the side effects are, especially if you overdo it with the overuse. So I was getting a bit concerned about that. So that's when I looked into using natural methods to kind of heal my skin. I went on a healing journey, and so that's why I'm here kind of sharing with you today.
Yay, so happy to have you here. How about you share with us what is the difference, you know, with eczema in Europe and in Singapore?
So that's a great question. So I think the main difference is the fact that the weather is very different between here and Europe. So in Europe, it's often a lot colder, and it can feel a lot drier in the air. Whereas in Singapore, it's very hot, it's very humid. For me, my skin has actually done a lot better here than it has been back in Europe.
That is quite surprising, because I usually have the conception that the heat will trigger the eczema.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's an important point, because the thing about eczema, and that's why it is sometimes quite difficult to give people advice, is because it is so different from person to person. So one thing I would say, if people are, deciding to go down the kind of natural route, you do have to prepare for a lot of learning about what it is specifically that triggers your eczema, what does your skin like, what it doesn't like, learning about these things, and not always just listening to what other people are telling you.
So you mentioned about learning about what your skin is like. So how about you? How did you, go on this learning journey? Where did you start? And, how has it helped you throughout these few years?
Well, it all started with YouTube. So I went on I think I was just watching some YouTube, and it was actually after I had started getting interested into sort of vegan plant-based diets. Actually not really to do with my skin initially. Initially it was just something that my friend said, you might be interested in this. And then the YouTube algorithm popped up with a video. So obviously the algorithm knows me very well, but it came up with a video that said, healing your eczema naturally with a vegan plant-based diet. And that's kind of how it all started. I found all these other YouTubers who were using the kind of vegan plant-based diet to heal their skin. And so it took about, I'd say, 9 months to a year maybe for it to completely clear up, but it's not a linear journey. Like, it gets really bad at first, and then it seems to get better, and then it's kind of very, mediocre for a long time, then it gets worse, then it gets good. So it's very, very up and down. But after the 9-10 months of really sort of looking after myself and my diet, that's all of a sudden where my skin kind of rapidly healed. So that's how I got to where I am today.
That's nice to hear. I mean, 9 months is quite decent given the fact that you had eczema for so long.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And I think actually, even though I did have eczema for a long time, I do think I am kind of more fortunate than perhaps some other people who have it very severely, like all over. And I did have it all over, but I do think that was also a reaction to coming off some of the steroids. Like, I think that me naturally, like, even though I am very sensitive, my skin is sensitive, it's always in like kind of concentrated small areas rather than a kind of full on all over. But I do think that has something to do with the steroids.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you can share with us today what are 3 different natural remedies that you use to help with your eczema journey?
Yeah, sure. So when you're choosing to manage it holistically and naturally, there are kind of 3 key elements, I would say, when it comes to healing yourself and your skin. So the 3 things you want to be thinking about is firstly is diet, so everything that is going into your body. So you want to be looking at very nutrient dense, you want to be looking at very anti-inflammatory, so things like low sugar, nothing processed, like as much sort of natural whole foods as possible. And then second thing you want to be looking into is your lifestyle. So as we know, stress is probably one of the biggest things that causes eczema, or at least aggravates it. So as well as lifestyle, you want to be thinking about sleep, all these sorts of things. And then the third thing is your environment and everything that's kind of external, because your skin, if you have eczema, you are going to be much more sensitive. So there's things around you, so there might be things like dust, there might be, again, we talk about weather, the different creams and products that you use, all these things are going to affect people differently. And again, like I said, it's when these 3 things come together in balance, that's when your skin is going to start to heal.
I see. So it's a combination of all 3. There's no one specific pillar that you would point towards.
I wish I could say it was this one thing. But unfortunately, the thing is about your skin is a reflection of your overall health. So you have to get your overall health into a really good state, and then you have to start thinking about all the other things outside of your body. And like I said, that's when really your skin will start to benefit from it.
Right. So if you had one tip to share with eczema bearers out there, what would that be?
Oh, that is a very, very good question. My main tip is, if you're choosing to do this naturally, holistically, have patience, positivity, and persistence, because if you're doing all the things right, then your skin will love you for it in the end.
And Ulrika is a great example of, an eczema healing within 9 months. That is amazing. You can definitely do it too.
Definitely.
And like she said, you just need patience and persistence, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yep. So thank you so much for joining us today. If you like what you see, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button, and we'll see you again in our next episode.